T3, January 2018. 9009 is 9 times 1001, and 9 is 3 squared. It's a product of prime factors, so that's 3 squared times 7 times 11 times 13. We have 3 cubed times 5 times 7, and I have 3 squared times 7 times 11 times 13. So I'm looking for common, which is 7. 1 has 3 cubed, but 3 cubed is 3 squared times 3. So the other common is 3 squared. So the HCF be 3 squared times 7, 9 times 7, which is 63. Alternatively, write the two numbers side by side and divide by common factors, and see that 9 goes into both of them. That gives us 105 and 1001. Next one's very hard to see. I can see it from this question here. That's going to be 7. 7 goes into 105 17 times, and it goes into 1001 143. Highest common factor 9 times 7 again. To find the mean, we want the midpoints, so 12.5, 17.5, 22.5, 27.5, 32.5, and 37.5. And for each of those midpoints, we want to multiply them by the frequencies. So we have 17.5 times 12, which is 210. 22.5 times 18, 405. 27.5 times 8, 220. 32.5 times 6, 195. And 37.5 times 4, 150. If we add all of those together, we get 1205. And if we were to add together the frequency, that gives us the number of workers. So 2 plus 12 plus 18 plus 8 plus 6 plus 4 gives us 50, which means the mean is 1205 divided by 50, which is 24.1. We're then asked to explain why it is an estimate, and that's because we're using midpoints. The data is grouped, which means we don't have the exact values. So if we start off with n is 1 and the sum is 1, we add 2 to n, which gives us 3, and then we add n to the sum, so 3 plus 1 is 4. Is n greater than or equal to 8? No. Add 2 to n, add n to the sum, 5 plus 4, which is 9. Is n greater than or equal to 8? No. Add 2, 7, 7 and 9 is 16. N still isn't greater than or equal to 8, which means we'll then have 9 and 25. So the answer is the sum is 25. Describing words, the function carried out by the flow chart, it's generating the square numbers. If we keep on working up the square numbers, then we would have 11 and 36, and then we would have 13 and 49, which means that the output for n greater than or equal to 12 would be 49. Factorise, so we're looking for what 8 and 12 have in common, which is 4. And 4 times 2 gives us 8, and times 3 gives us the 12. The r is only in the first value, and both have a factor of t, and t times t gives us t squared. K squared minus 16 is the difference of two squares, so that's k plus 4 k minus 4 when factorising. That just needs learnt. 4x minus y equals 3. I'm going to multiply that by 2. 8x minus 2y equals 6. If I leave the second alone, that means I have minus 2y plus 2y. So if I add them together, 14x equals 7. X was a half. 4x minus y is 3. 4 times a half is 2, which means that y must have been minus 1. If Bob was given a 3.5% pay rise, that means his new salary is 103.5%. We're going to work out 1% by dividing £25,378.20 by 103.5, and that gives us 245.2, which means 100%, the original salary, 24,520. One side of the rectangle is x plus 2, and the other side is x plus 4, so the area is x plus 2 times x plus 4. Area is 48, so x plus 2 times x plus 4 has to equal 48, so x squared plus 2x plus 4x plus 8 is 48. 2x plus 4x is 6x, and 8 take away 48 is minus 40. To solve the quadratic, we can either use the quadratic formula, which is on the formula sheet, so x equals minus b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. So in this case, a is 1, b is 6, and c is minus 40. So we want minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Alternatively, we can factorise, so we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give minus 40, but add to give plus 6, and those two numbers would be plus 10 and minus 4. Gives us the x plus 10 equals 0, so x would be minus 10. That makes no sense because we're dealing with length. Our x minus 4 equals 0, so x would have been 4. The last thing we have to do is remember that x has units and x is 4 centimetres. We have an isosceles triangle, which means that if we split it down the middle, we have two right angle triangles. So we have 8, 6 and x. 6 is adjacent to the angle and 8 is the hypotenuse. Writing out our SOHCAHTOA, I want a and h, which means I want cos. So the cos of the angle is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So inverse cos of 6 divided by 8 gives us an angle of 41.4 degrees. I'm going to start this question by using Pythagoras, and Pythagoras, I'm writing that out because we're looking at quality of written communication. The hypotenuse, so the square of the hypotenuse equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. Using FOIL, x squared plus x plus 1 has to equal y squared plus x squared minus x plus 1. On the left hand side I have x squared plus 2x plus 1, and on the right hand side I have x squared minus 2x plus 1. If we bring and make y the subject, y squared the subject, the x squareds will cancel on both sides. We have 2x plus 2x, which gives 4x, and the 1's will cancel. That means that y is the square root of 4x, so that's the square root of 4 times the square root of x, which is 2 root x, which is even. So we're looking at box plots, and the first thing I'm going to look at is the median. So the median for resort A is this line. So the median value in resort A is 27, whereas in resort B it is 28.5. So I'm going to use the median. So using somewhere, she likes to go somewhere warm, so I'm going to use resort B, the median, and always give the values. 28.5 is higher at B than A, which had a median of 27. Second values that I'm going to use are the range, or the interquartile range, which is the width of the box. And the interquartile range for resort A goes from 25 to 29, so it is 4. For resort B, it goes from 24.6 to 30, which means that the range is 5.4. So in resort A, the reason for going there is a lower range of temperatures, so it's less likely to be lower. And the interquartile range for A is 4, and the interquartile range for B is 5.4. Alternatively, I could have used that the lowest value for A is 24 and the lowest value for B is 21 as my reason for going to resort A. So to work out the median, there's 250 calls in total, so the median will be at 125. So we draw a line across at 125 and then down. You'll be using a ruler in the exam. And what I can see is that it is 7 hours. There are 5 little squares for an hour, which means that each square is 12 minutes. So the median is at 7 hours and 12 minutes. For B, we're asked for the number of calls between 5 and 10. So if I go up to 5 and across to read, we have 45 calls. And at 10, if we go up and across, we have 235 calls. So the number of calls between 5 and 10 is 235. Take away 45, which is 195. For this, I've answered on the graph paper where I read the median and then the 5 and 10 minutes.